What does it mean to be the chosen one? That is a question that has long pervaded human history. Dune Part 1 and 2 utilize ideology, aesthetics, and sociopolitics to subvert the conventions of the Messiah narrative by firstly deconstructing and critiquing our cultural dependence on manufactured hope used to control both the narrative and our current world today. Thomas Schatz argues that the relationship of genre filmmaking to cultural myth making seems to me to be significant and direct. This connection is crucial because genre films, especially in science fiction, respond to the political climate, industrial shifts, and audience expectations. Genre films serve as a vehicle for ideological solutions to social issues. Here in point, Dune presents a savior figure who not only reacts to the chaos around him, but actively participates in shaping it. So here he's not like, I'm going with the wind, as the usual chosen one characters we know, especially in the case of Katniss Everdeen, which we all are familiar with, especially with all the new Hunger Game trilogy movies coming out, the prequels, especially one coming out next year. So we really need to view this, especially in that light, because here in Katniss, she's forced to be the chosen one in her story, and then is picked to be the Mockingjay. But this is not the case for Dune. Paul knows what he is, or rather what he's not, which is the chosen one. He knows he's just rich, he's powerful, his mom is a Bene Gesserit, and apparently they have been crafting him according to multiples of breeding between the different houses just to personally have him to be the possible savior of the world. And he knows this. Though he doesn't want to participate at first, he willingly joins in the narrative. The Bene Gesserit have been planting stories of the arrival of the savior who would rescue the Fremen from their oppressors and lead them to freedom and prosperity in an effort to control them. Religious ideology is a tool that benefits both the Bene Gesserit and Paul greatly. Thomas Sobchak argues that the genre film lives up to the guiding principles of its classical origins. There is nothing new under the sun, and truth, with a capital T, is to be found in imitating the past. This statement is especially true as Dune serves as both a cautionary tale and a mirror of our current world. This is especially with how religion can serve as a weapon for the ill-intentioned. Before he joined the Fremen, Paul had to prove his power and status of the Bene Gesserit order to determine whether he was the Kwisatz Haderach, a parallel to the Lisan al-Gaib, which means a voice of the outer world. And this was the Fremen's messianic figure. However, here comes an issue. Paul was supposed to be a daughter who would then marry into the Harkonnen family and then bear Kwisatz Haderach. However, his mother, Lady Jessica, went against the order. And this is a sore spot for the Bene Gesserit sisters, as they had been carefully planning this for millennia, and suddenly everything has been thwarted by just one woman's decision. Unlike a typical savior, the Kwisatz Haderach is an individual with immense power, intended to be controlled by the sisterhood. So, with this new savior in their hands, they're like, we need to figure something out. Is this person real? Or do we have a ploy that we might have to divert and figure out something else so in order to make this prophecy that they've been crafting for so long to actually happen? And so this was all figured out by first performing a test to assess his potential, which was the Gom Jabbar trial. The scene is gripping, set in a dim, austere space with the Reverend Mother Superior cloaked in darkness. She uses the voice, a Bene Gesserit ability that commands obedience and control, to summon Paul. Here, he's then forced to place his hand in a pain-inducing box while a poisoned needle hovers at his neck. If he moves, Eve is dead. If he moves his hand from the box, he's dead. If he doesn't stay in place, he'll be gone forever, and then they'll figure someone else to maintain or take over his position. Now, Paul knows this. He's like, I cannot fail. The silence of the scene is pierced by gasps and a rising pitch sound, which we as the audience hear. We're like, what's going on? Paul's suffering is amplified. As his pain intensifies, his expression changes from agony to resolve. Here, his transformation is signaled. With this in mind, you can hear the music. The orchestral score shifts, suggesting not just survival, but conquest. Here, all the attention is centered on Paul's pain and the Reverend Mother's dominance, underscoring the power imbalance. This movie scene serves not just as a discovery for the supposed Kwisatz Haderach, the messianic figure, but also as a tool to gauge whether Paul can actually survive the prophecy, because this is just the beginning. There is more to come, and being able to survive just a simple task would show its potential in surviving the more trials and tribulations to come when he actually does meet the Fremen and have survived their own test. Because they're not just going to believe, oh, you're the Messiah? Okay, here you go, come save us. Like, that's not how it's going to go. So we need to know whether he's ready or not. So here we see the pain box is not just an object, but a symbol, a trial by fire. His passing of the trial indicates the Bene Gesserit that he has been divinely chosen and would be their tool. However, as the audience, we know that he passes not just because of a latent divine power that's been stewing within him from when he was born or imposed divinely by someone outside. This was years of training by his mother, Lady Jessica, in addition to the breeding and careful selection that had been going on for eons to produce him. This pivotal moment highlights the film's main point. Paul wasn't chosen by chance, but rather by design. He knows the key details of the prophecy, having looked at it and heard about it so many times from his mother. And so here, with the myth in hand, when he finally frees himself from the Harkonnens' hold and goes to join the Fremen for safety, he chooses to bend the myth to his own making, to his own power, to exact revenge at the expense of the people's hope. Here it fits perfectly into the shape that has been molded for him. And the pain he felt that night was a precursor of what he would have to face with the burdens of both the Bene Gesserit and the Fremen on his shoulders. The Fremen represents, or rather presented as indigenous desert dwellers, and this evokes parallels to our current world in regards to, like, for example, Bedouins and other groups across the Middle East and Africa. Here, these people share a commonality: invasion and colonization. Whether it's spice for the former or oil for the latter, they are one and the same. At the heart of the Fremen culture is a prophecy that the Lisan al-Gaib will lead them to paradise, a future of abundance in water and with life, which serves as their source of hope. Paul's mother, a Bene Gesserit, becomes their new Reverend Mother, embedding herself in their spiritual leadership and using the prophecy to strengthen Paul's position as their savior. Here you can see she doesn't go in as the Bene Gesserit, the full all black regalia, the big headscarf, everything. No, she fully takes all that off and clothes herself with the Fremen clothing, almost assimilating, but not quite. She maintains her control. She maintains her training as the Bene Gesserit, just thwarting and using their current culture and traditions and things like that to fit her own, and not to join, but to overtake. A key moment we need to talk about especially is Paul's mastery of the sandworm riding, a sacred rite within Fremen culture. Here, he boards the sandwoman actually stays on, which is like, hey, you've been getting practice, by Zendaya's character, like, you're good. But no, like, you would assume that, like, okay, you did that. Everyone in the Fremen culture can do that. He learned, even though he's an outsider, to do it. Hey, it's still good. That doesn't mean anything. But apparently, in the prophecy, Lisan al-Gaib was supposed to be able to ride the sandworms, to be able to be with them, to be able to speak their language. All of these things Paul had been prepping for ages. So it's not just a miracle. It's all been planned. It's all been planned. And here his action reinforces his legitimacy as the prophesied one. Paul's transformation into the messianic figure is dramatized, especially during the 10th assembly among the Fremen. When told that he must defeat Stilgar, the current leader of the Fremen, in order to voice his thoughts, because they had a system whereby the person with the shell would be only able to speak, Paul challenges their customs, declaring, his words provoke outrage, but he silences the crowd by revealing details from the Fremen's past, performing what they perceived as a miracle. He puts on his father's ring and proclaims,
I am Paul Muad'Dib Atreides, Duke of Arrakis! Erudidina Heshidani, Nelisan Al-Gaib, Ruin Dimenaruk, Ashini!
In this moment, Paul consolidates power. By putting on his father's ring, it shows that, like, his interest isn't for the Fremen people. His interest is for his revenge and for his father, a colonizer of Arrakis. Whether or not his dad is bad or good, it can all be debated. Regardless, the fact of the matter is, the House of Atreides were colonizers. All the houses are fighting. It's like the scramble for Africa, if we all know our history. They're all fighting for this piece of land, or rather, this planet, with full of resources. In the case of Real World, it was gold, it was peoples, materials. It was things they'd never seen, but they wanted to conquer. And in this case, it's spice. And so he legitimizes both himself as being the ruler who's going to take over the House of Atreides, but also their new master. Not the Lisan al-Gaib, no. He is just now the leader of House Atreides, ready to take and to conquer, regardless of the other people that he would have to step on. Paul consolidates his power by first trampling on the Fremen's way of life. He broke their systems, he broke their customs, and imposed his beliefs on them. Here is a force to be reckoned with, a myth that no one can take hold of and stop. Paul's actions are cold and calculated, marking his transformation from a curious and idealistic youth eager to live among the Fremen and support their resistance, into a more commanding figure, ready to use and take. The Fremen are not friends, they're fodder. He is the new overseer. The film reveals quite strikingly this change, both with the visuals and what he is saying, his actions, what he is doing. He is weaponizing the Fremen's belief systems to solidify his own power. This continues on. The subversion, especially, that the Messiah is someone of that culture or community. That is no longer the case. Instead, it is an outsider coming to save the people. Let's talk about aesthetics, because frankly, the Dune films are beautiful. One thing you would say, if not for the narrative, if not for the stories, if not for the A-list actors like Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya, amongst many others, the scenes are well crafted. It is visually pleasing. The Dune universe is both stunning and intentional, with each element contributing to the film's thematic experience. Villeneuve creates a world that feels suspended between the ancient and the future. using brutalist architecture to evoke stability and emotional dissonance. This architectural style is most prominent in Giedi Prime. This is the home of the Arcanins. Here, the structure reflects the family's hardened and ruthless character and their role as the primary antagonists. The film's use especially of light and shadow similarly delineates innocence and guilt. In Arrakis, it's bright, the colors are amazing. There's oranges and lights, colors, and spectrums. It's very bright, it's very open, as compared to the Harkonnen world, where it's dark. The sun is a black sun. Like, that already indicates to you that, oh, this is a no good place. You gotta leave if you can. Like, these people are not good people at all. Like, it just shows you that visually, if I'm even telling you who these people are. It's showing their brutality, their lack of innocence, their, let's not say evilness, because it is their planet after all, and it just delineates a certain character. House Atreides is built with the foreign brutalist structures that clash against the desert environment. However, the Fremen carved their homes into the mountains, allowing the integrity of their natural environment to be preserved and remain. Now, with House Atreides, even before their fall being present, you can see that little bit of colonization and gentrification happening in the Fremen community. The Atreides compound features Fremen workers keeping the palace clean, maintaining plants, and taking on all the menial jobs, while the Atreides people and their workers get to live a more privileged life. Let's also talk about the Bene Gesserit as well when talking of aesthetics. They are constantly shrouded in darkness, dressed in voluminous black robes and face coverings that obscure their expressions. Their imposing silhouettes and presence in dimly lit scenes emphasize their secrecy as well. So you know, these people, they know it all. And here, their control and manipulation is also emphasized. They show nothing, revealing little, while always observing and learning. Arrakis is vibrant with warm golden hues from its boundless dunes to the still suits worn by the Fremen, which allows them to recycle their sweat and blend seamlessly into the desert. When Paul and Jessica decide to live among them, there is a shift in worldview and how power and authority impact space. Sound design also plays a key role in shaping the film's tone and complex use of the voice, especially as a tool for command and dominance. So the voice, which is a use of power and control by the Bene Gesserit, is accompanied by vocal distortion and eerie echoes, immediately alerting the characters and the audience that a supernatural force is compelling submission. These aesthetic choices, light, architecture, sound, and costume, are not merely decorative. No, they function as a critical lens through which viewers can engage with the film's focus and deeper critiques. And this deeper critique is that messianic narratives and mythic grandeur are usually just tools disguised as destiny. The socio-political landscape of Dune further deepens this critique of the Messiah narrative. The Bene Gesserit strategically placed women in noble houses as advisors, spies, and even consorts just to get power, just to get knowledge. Because as they all say, knowledge is power. And if you know someone's secret, you can definitely control them. Here, this advances their long-term political and religious agenda. Jessica's placement within House Atreides and her entanglement with Duke Leto of House Atreides produced Paul. Meanwhile, the value of spies drives imperial violence. House Harkonnen, backed by the Emperor, annihilates the whole of House Atreides, except for Paul and Lady Jessica, in a brutal coup, setting the stage for Paul's revenge. Political tensions climax. Paul Atreides is now seen as the Lisan al-Gaib, he has the power. And so he decides, at that point, to stoke a war against the empire. Paul challenges the emperor, who dismisses Paul's father as weak. In response, Paul demands a duel or that the emperor appoints a champion. There is a paradigm shift as the Reverend Mother Superior tells him to understand the gravity of his actions to challenge the emperor, because if you're trying to emperor, then if you lose, everyone's gone, everyone's dead. Like, what's the point? Just go with status quo. Well, Paul already, he's over it. Now that he has the power and the backing of the Fremen, he's ready to do anything at all costs in order to make sure he exacts his revenge. Here, he uses the voice.
Silence!
Suppressing her with immense power, forcing her back, causing her to stumble and hide within the sisters in her order. This scene mirrors the earlier one we talked about, where the positions were switched. Now, he's the one using the voice against her and she cannot withstand him, indicating his newfound power and also control and also dominance, because you need those specific skills and qualities in order to use the voice and actually control the voice and make sure that no one actually breaks free from that power. Feyd-Rautha, which is Paul's cousin and House Harkonnen's heir, is a really dark and crazy individual. It's played by Austin Butler. Like, that was one of his best performances. So Paul's cousin and House Harkonnen's heir, Feyd-Rautha, decides to accept the challenge. Now, before we go into especially what happens within that scene, Feyd-Rautha is crazy. He's insane. He's bold. He's Austin Butler. That's a really interesting combination. He was supposed to be the one who would marry Paul, because if Paul was born as a daughter, the union between Feyd-Rautha and Paul, well, female Paul, if that was the case in the alternate future, would have resulted in the Kwisatz Haderach, which was the supposed messianic figure. Now, going back to all of this, let's go back to the present now. A lot of times the people he fights are those who are drugged. In the case of when he fought against one of the people that were captured from House Atreides. So now we see this brutal character fight against Paul. Here, the duel is brutal and silent. There is no music and distraction. It's just focused on skill and precision. There's just clangs of the swords as they're moving around, circling each other, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. So when Paul defeats Feyd-Rautha, the Fremen erupt into chants of Lisan al-Gaib, declaring him their savior to everyone now. This moment denotes his ascension in the people's eyes, not as a man, but a god. The hope the Fremen has now placed on him has now become the weapon he would wield. With his arm outstretched, demanding submission, the Emperor recognizes his defeat. And then, shocking to us all, he kneels and kisses Paul's ring. Because I was like, that's when you know, he's now king. He's not emperor of all the houses. All the houses have to submit to him if the emperor himself is submitting to him. And then Paul's final command.
Lead them to paradise.
And that was the ending of Dune Part 2. Dune utilizes tropes to create a story that we've all seen before, but yet it's different. This story mirrors our current world. The film follows the typical hero's journey archetype, using it as a vehicle to explore the themes of what a savior can truly be. The film invites the audience to consider and question the legitimacy of the messianic figure, Paul, and how a harsh socio-political environment cultivates the need for this idea. The implementation of cultural myth-making and ideology complexly weaved by the Bene Gesserit across millennia to hold control was depicted strongly. And here we see how the need for heroes in disparaged communities can further hurt them. And though it's still not complete, the trilogy, there's still one more in the making. I am excited to see how and if they would follow the books as they've closely have so far, except for certain details. But that's what you get with adaptations. The Villeneuve films, Dune Part 1 and 2, suggest that the stories we look to for hope and possibilities could very much be ploys for control rather than the promised freedom. These films display how prophecy, when stripped of its promises and grandeur, reveals an empty shell of lies and false promises. It's basically a nothing burger. Paul Atreides is not a messiah born of a chance or divine will. By embracing this false prophecy, Paul exposes not only the fragility of hope, but also the danger of belief built on deception. He is not a hero. He doesn't deserve to be called the Lisan al-Gaib because of his justice or his goodness or the fact that he is in love and cares for the Fremen people. No. It is because a lot of people believe he's the Messianic figure. Because they believe he's the Lisan al-Gaib, he's the Lisan al-Gaib, regardless of all the other indications that he may not be who he truly says he is. Dune, both the movies and the books, live with us a haunted message on the dangers of myths and false hope, warning us not to put our hope in fickle and mortal things like humans. It is important that we analyze and assess all the data around us and not just follow blindly what people say, but actually make judgments in order to hopefully protect our futures and the generations ahead.